Well, my clock reads 4 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and kick things off. So my name is John McMain. I'm an assistant professor and extension water management engineer with SDSU Extension. I'm housed in the Ag and Biosystems Engineering Department. And so this webinar is a collaboration between a lot of different groups, but it is in collaboration with McCrory Gardens as part of their Earth Day celebration. And so happy Earth Day, everyone. And a little later on, my colleague Jeremiah Bergstrom with SDSU Landscape Architecture Program will be taking over in the second half of the presentation. So just covering a little bit of housekeeping. So as a webinar participant, your microphones are muted, but you can use the chat feature. At the bottom of your Zoom screen, you should see a Q&A button. So use that Q&A to submit questions throughout the presentation, and we'll answer them at the end of the session. So thanks for joining us, everyone. We're glad you're here. Glad we're able to make this work. And so here we go. So just a little bit of background on this project. So this is a mini grant funded project. So we have a mini grant through the 319 Information and Education Program. That's through the South Dakota Discovery Center. And with some matching funds from East Dakota Water Development District. And then we've been working with community partners, McCrory Gardens and the Boys and Girls Club of Brookings. And this is kind of a multi-part project, with the first being, was going to be a series of workshops at McCrory Gardens and the Boys and Girls Club, but it is now this event, and then possibly some follow-up live events, but definitely this event is being recorded and will be posted on the SDSU Extension YouTube channel. So this is a great opportunity to discuss one of my favorite topics, water, because water is a huge part of what we think about in terms of sustainability and Earth Day. And so a little bit of history on Earth Day, because it is the 50th anniversary. So 50 years ago, there was a movement that really resulted in the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, and Endangered Species Act. And so now Earth Day is recognized as basically the planet's largest civic event. So it's been on Twitter a little bit today, and it's really cool to see everyone celebrating Earth Day in the ways that they can, very creatively. And so water in our planet, only 3% of water on Earth is fresh water. And so, and really water is, I mean, it's cliche to say, but water is life, but we don't value it as a resource as we should and could. And just a couple stats. So a leaky faucet, 1 drip per second. Faucet can leak up to 3,000 gallons a year. And then the average person in the US uses 156 gallons of water each day. So water is a resource that we don't always appreciate as we should, but hopefully today we can learn a little bit more about it and what we can do. So why harvest rainwater? So we're going to break it down into 3 separate reasons, and really the impact that individuals can have for themselves, for their local community, and really for their region and others, many others downstream. So the first one is water conservation. So when we think about water conservation, really the things that we think about are, where we want to start is the water cycle. And so the water cycle, we remember this from, probably learned it in 4th or 5th grade, that the water cycle, you have rainfall, precipitation. In South Dakota, you have a lot of the precipitation in the form of snow. And then that either goes into the ground as infiltration, or it runs off the surface as runoff. And then some of that gets returned to the atmosphere through evaporation or transpiration, which is the term used whenever plants use the water and push it back up into the atmosphere, or it's pulled up to the atmosphere. So when we think about how urbanization can impact stormwater runoff, we start over here on the far left where it says 10%. So that's referring to runoff. So this is in a natural system. You have about 10% runoff. So of the rain that falls, 10% runs off the surface. About 50% is infiltrated, either through shallow groundwater or through deeper groundwater flows, so aquifer recharge. Then about 40% of that returns to the atmosphere through evaporation or transpiration. And then as you move over, so the second figure with you've cut down a tree, you've added a house, you've gone from 0% impervious surface, or an impervious surface is anything that water cannot penetrate. So you've gone from 0 to 10 to 20%, and you've already doubled the amount of water that is runoff out of that water balance. Then when you move up to 35 to 50% impervious cover, so that's the graphic with the three houses and the one tree, well, now you've tripled. You've gone from 10% to 30% of the precipitation becomes runoff. And then when you're in a highly urban area, this could even be Brookings. It doesn't have to be a large metropolis like New York City. When you're at 75 to 100% impervious cover, then your runoff is 55% of your water balance. So you can imagine the impact that this has downstream. So you're increasing the amount of runoff, and you're decreasing the amount of time it takes to get to the stream. And so when we think about that hydrologic cycle, the water cycle, most natural systems are what we term as infiltration driven. So the majority of precipitation is infiltration, with the second piece of that being evapotranspiration, or the combination of evaporation and transpiration. Now, when you get into an urban hydrologic cycle, you're basically disconnecting the surface to the subsurface. And so, whereas before, water would infiltrate from the surface, go down into either shallow groundwater or deep groundwater, now that's disconnected. And what this does is it not only changes what happens on top of the ground, but most streams are fed by base flow. Base flow is the shallow groundwater that makes up the flow in streams for the majority of the year. And so streams go from being base flow driven to runoff driven. And so there's less consistency in flows. So you have less flow throughout the year. And whenever you do get rain, it's very flashy. So this leads to both less water in streams for the majority of the time. And then you also have more flooding and more erosion, more energy in the stream from high flows. And so with that as our background, we're going to dive into these three separate reasons for using rain barrels. So the first is water conservation. Now, water conservation is, again, it goes back to valuing water as a resource. So yes, a rain barrel could save money on utility bills from a water conservation perspective, but you also think about the impact that has on infrastructure. So if a city is growing and eventually they're going to need an increase in potable water resources, so more sources for water or more capacity to treat that water, well, reducing the water that's used, the treated water that's used, helps essentially decrease the pressure on the whole system. And also because you have less stormwater going into, or less water going into the stormwater systems, you also decrease the pressure on stormwater systems. So now if they're overburdened, well, now they have a little more capacity because you've held some of that in the landscape. So how much water can you harvest from one rooftop? So if we take just visualize a kind of average house, 800 square foot footprint, a 40 by 20 footprint. Well, a 1 inch rainfall event would generate 500 gallons of water. And 1 inch is not, definitely not unheard of. In fact, it's probably kind of in the middle to low end of rainfall events. And if you assume that you have 25 inches of rainfall per year, well, that's a whopping 12,500 gallons of water generated from that one rooftop. Now, we're not able to capture and use all of that water because it's hard to use. We may not be able to necessarily use up everything in a rain barrel from the time that it falls to when we get the next storm, but we can use some portion of that. And so as an estimate, if you think about a 50-gallon barrel, you could save approximately 1,200 gallons from April through September if you empty it once per week. So if you have a use for that once per week, that's a kind of ballpark of what you can save. And from a cost savings perspective, this may not be a big number, but you think about sustainability and conservation and Earth Day, and the water treatment process requires energy, requires inputs, and really for most of the uses for a rain barrel, you don't need highly treated water. And so you're taking pressure off a system that is maybe energy intensive, is maybe input intensive, and you're using water that really requires little to no energy, little to no inputs. And from a water conservation perspective, again, from that perspective of not wasting water that's been treated, it's important to think about other ways that we can do that. And so when we think about landscape and outdoor ways to conserve water, one is just to adjust watering as conditions change. And then a lot of plants require less water. I know some of you are involved with Master Gardeners programs and so have thought about these types of things. But native plants can require less water. They're more drought tolerant. Having mulch around plants actually, that acts as a barrier for evaporation, so you don't lose as much. Your ground is covered and protected. And then also from an evaporation perspective, watering early in the morning is when the water has the most opportunity to go into the soil and not be lost as evaporation. Indoor, there's also a lot of potential ways that we can deal with or conserve water. And one is for the EPA WaterSense logo. So this is kind of a standard that's set, and typically, well, as you can see here, so WaterSense toilets, 20% less water, dishwashers and washing machines, 50% less water, and then the WaterSense shower heads, 40% less water. Faucet aerators are also a good way to conserve water at home. And again, it's not just a cost savings. I mean, we do get cost savings from this, but it's more about what did that water require to be treated. So it required energy, it required inputs, and so by using less of that water, we're not just wasting less water, we're also wasting less energy and less inputs. So other things that you can do to help, and this is somewhat from a runoff perspective, is to plant trees, install porous pavers, and install rain gardens. And Jeremiah and I love to talk about all these practices. So if you're interested, we can certainly follow up after the presentation. So the second big key point about installing a rain barrel is to capture rainwater runoff in the sense of from a stormwater perspective. So as we mentioned, when you have impervious surfaces, even just 10 to 20% of a watershed, if it's impervious, then you've doubled the amount of runoff that is generated from a storm event. And so this is also exacerbated when you have higher annual precipitation or higher precipitation events. So our average annual precipitation, you can see, let's just talk through this map. So obviously map of South Dakota, and then you can see on the key here that the very dark green, and just going to point out here kind of in the southeast corner of the state, this is 24 to 26 inches. Up here where Brookings is, this is in the 22 to 24 inches of annual precipitation. Last year, Brookings got quite a bit more than that. We all know that. We experienced it, we lived it. And this is not just a pattern from last year. This has been a trend over the last 15, 20 years. So this is a study that some of my colleagues did, Dr. Chris Hay and Dr. Dennis Toddy. And so this is comparing the mean annual precipitation, so the average rainfall and snowfall that you get in a year. And so they compared the chunk from 1961 to 1990, compared that with the period from 1991 to 2009. And with this map, we can see that, so this kind of light blue color, this is an increase of 2 inches of annual precipitation. This darker blue is 3 inches, the very dark blue is 4 inches, and then down here in Iowa, they had an area of 5 inches. So when you think about and 2 to 5 inches, if you're from, say, New Orleans, that doesn't sound like a lot, but if our average is 22 to 24 inches, that's a significant increase. And so that's potentially taxing the infrastructure, and so we're dealing with potential for more flooding. And so the other piece of that is, since 1990, second bullet point, South Dakota's averaged 14% more 1-inch rain events. So we're getting more annual precipitation, they're getting more intense, and the time that it's coming is in winter. So winter precipitation is projected to increase by 10 to 20%. If we remember our water balance, infiltration, runoff, and evapotranspiration, there's not a lot of evapotranspiration happening in the winter. And so the ability of our landscape to use that water is greatly decreased in the winter. So we need to manage water differently and think about how we manage water differently. This is just another example of, again, increases in fall and increases in winter. So we're getting it more when there's no vegetation, so there's very little use of the water by vegetation. Again, this is just a map showing that this is projected change in winter precipitation. So the last was kind of historical. This is projected, continuing to see that trend into the future. So because we are experiencing more rainfall, we need to think about how we manage that runoff. And so one big piece of this is something we think about, disconnecting impervious surfaces. So if we look at this system, and this is typical, and there's reasons for it, but typically in a home setting, we go from roof to gutter to downspout to a driveway or sidewalk or some type of impervious surface. And then from there, it goes into a storm sewer. And then from the storm sewer, it goes into a creek or lake or some receiving body of water. This does not give the landscape any ability to manage that stormwater. And this is an even more closely connected impervious surface. So you have the downspout going directly into a gutter or into a pipe, which then goes into the curb and gutter system into the storm sewer. This is one step further. So we don't even have a curb and gutter in this situation. It just goes directly into the storm sewer. So we want to, when we think about managing stormwater, we want to disconnect impervious surfaces. Let's hold that water in place. Let's give it a chance to be used in the landscape. One way we can do that is with rain barrels. So the rain barrel, instead of having a direct connection from the gutter to the street, well, now you have the rainfall going into a rain barrel. Water that can then be used on the landscape from that rain barrel. And so now the water that would have gone directly into the storm sewer is now being used in the landscape. We're going again from an infill or from a runoff driven system, a runoff dominated system, and we're trying to restore that pre-development hydrology going back to an infiltration driven system. Downspout connection is another way to do this. And so again, this is just taking, it's disconnecting impervious surfaces. So whereas we had a roof to a gutter to a downspout to an impervious surface, now we're directing this onto the landscape, and we're giving the landscape an opportunity to use that water. There's other rainwater harvesting applications. Today we're discussing a rain barrel. Jeremiah will be getting into the details on that, but rainwater harvesting, it covers a range of systems. So I worked with a system in Kentucky where I'm from. It was a Coca-Cola distribution facility. They had two 10,000 gallon tanks, and they used this water for washing floors, washing trucks, flushing toilets, and for landscaping. So they had done a water audit to determine how much water they could use from rainfall, and then installed two 10,000 gallon tanks to use rainwater as a resource rather than just letting it go downstream. And essentially what we're looking at is the ability to capture rain from rooftops in spring and summer when it's able to be used. And if we think only about landscape and irrigation, then that limits our ability in the shoulder seasons, say in the fall. But if we have other applications, then perhaps we can use that rainwater still in the shoulder seasons in the spring and the fall. Above ground tanks, they're most cost effective for existing sites because no excavation is required. Roofing material can definitely play a role in how clean the water is, but there are ways to improve the quality of the rainwater that's captured. And then the tank should be emptied every 2 to 4 weeks to provide the most benefit, both from a stormwater management perspective, as well as making sure the water in the tank stays clean, doesn't allow for algae growth and buildup. And then also it gives you the ability to use that water on the landscape. So our goal is to distribute 100 rain barrels. And if we can do 1,200 gallons per year on average with that, That's 120,000 gallons that we've saved per year. That's also 120,000 gallons that did not become runoff. And this last point, so a lot that we talk about with rainwater harvesting and rain barrels is related to water quantity, but there is a water quality perspective too. And so non-point source pollution is defined as pollution, water pollution that comes from across the landscape. And that's what's associated with stormwater and runoff. And we call it non-point source pollution because really we can't trace it to a specific place that it came out, like a industrial outfall or a wastewater treatment plant. But non-point source pollution is challenging to manage because it is distributed. And it's not that any single individual point is contributing a lot of pollution, but it's the cumulative effect of pollution from all across the landscape. And so non-point source pollution, really it can take many forms. And again, a lot of them are small, really very insignificant examples or sources of pollution, but cumulatively they have a very significant impact. And non-point source pollution, it's one of the drivers of impacting water quality, and really it can impact a range of water quality benefits. And so we think about a rain barrel. How does that reduce non-point source pollution? One is by reducing the volume and the peak flow, we're reducing erosion. And so sediment is the #1 cause for impairment for water in the US. Reducing erosion by reducing peak flow and volume goes a long way to reducing erosion. So Jeremiah will take over from here. I'm going to stop share and let him pick up.
Thanks, John. Yes, give me just a second. I am going to post a link in the chat here for everybody. All right, so I have just posted a link in the chat. We now have available rain barrels and you can purchase them. So the link to purchase them is there, and I will talk to you in a second about that effort. So get this started. Hopefully everybody can see this. There we go. All right, so yeah, so thanks, John, for taking the first half of that talk. I want to do the fun part here at the end. So I get to tell everybody how they can get their rain barrel and hopefully get it installed and saving water and using it. So yes, the grant that we have funding from through South Dakota Discovery Center and the East Dakota Water Development District has allowed us to purchase 100 rain barrels that we are going to then be able to provide to homeowners residents here in Brookings for a cost of about $25. We're limiting 1 rain barrel per household, and you will purchase the barrels online. I want to send a special thank you out to Christina Lind at McCrory Gardens, who's handling this. She's actually babysitting our rain barrels right now. They've gotten delivered. They're sitting there, and we're trying to figure out how to allow everyone to get in there and pick them up. So we're working through that, and she set up the ordering you see here. So at Eventbrite, you can order your rain barrel, and after you place that order, and we will provide pickup instructions. We will hopefully have a time when you can stop by at McCrory Gardens during a certain window, and then we can get you your rain barrel and you can put it in your car. Please keep in mind, you need to bring a vehicle that will actually carry the rain barrel home. It's 50 gallons, so it's a little bit large. Won't fit in a real small car typically, but will fit in the back seat of most large sedans, SUVs, of course, vans, and trucks. So again, it is a 50-gallon container. Again, the sales are open right now. That link is up, and we will continue the sales of the rain barrels for a week or until we've sold out of our 100 rain barrels that we have right now. So just to go over a little bit more about what our rain barrels are. Let me see here. There we go. So just a little bit of the basics. You can see here, again, rain barrels capture water from rooftop areas, hopefully your home, and the barrels that you're purchasing. Again, this is non-potable water. Should be used for irrigation and washing, not for drinking or cooking with. Your barrels, again, need to be sealed and screened at all times to keep mosquitoes out of them. Your barrel will come with a screen. You'll just need to keep the cover on it so that it does not allow mosquitoes in, and we don't get any issues with mosquito breeding in your rain barrel. Again, these rain barrels can't stay out all winter long. You will need to take them down in the wintertime. We'll talk a little bit more about winterizing your system. But in the fall, when it gets time, and frost is going to happen, you don't want water to freeze in your barrel. It'll crack and damage it. You'll need to take your barrel down and then reconnect your downspout so that you can have the water, any rainfall and snow melt get away from your foundation. Again, hopefully, if you purchase a rain barrel, you have gutters and downspouts on your house. Your rain barrel will not fill if you just put it out in the backyard or in the garden and expect the rain to fill it up. That will not work. Yes, I have had people who have done that and called me not wondering why their barrel hasn't filled. So you do need to connect it to a source of water from your rooftop with a gutter or a downspout. And keep in mind, there's lots of different sizes and styles of rain barrels out there. This is actually a rain barrel made from a pickle barrel. Reused food grade barrel. So if you don't get one of these barrels or you want another barrel, you can look for food grade barrels, or there are other barrels out there that carry soaps and things like that that could be used. A lot of instructions and guidance and YouTube videos on how to convert used barrels into rain barrels. Please avoid barrels that have had harsh chemicals in them. Again, food grade barrels are excellent for creating your own rain barrel. So again, the other thing, whenever you're doing rainwater harvesting, any project that we go pursue, we really want to know that you have a use for that water. So use that water regularly. Don't let that water sit there. It's not providing any benefit to you, the landscape, or the stormwater system if that barrel is not emptied out regularly so that it can refill the next time that it rains. Again, it's a great source of water. You know, that water is not going to have any chemicals or salts in it, no chlorine in it. And again, all those things that we've had to do to make it potable water for drinking, and your plants are going to love it. Again, you know, use that water as frequently as you can. I like to hook up a soaker hose to my rain barrel, put it close to a landscaped area, and then open it up when it's full and let the soaker hose empty that rain barrel in about 2 hours. You'll get enough pressure from your rain barrel to push it to the end of a soaker hose, about 20, 25 feet. And over an hour or so, it'll drain right out, close it back up. Next time it rains, it fills. One of the great ways to use that. Use it on vegetables in vegetable gardens. Again, we encourage that if you're going to use it in a vegetable garden, use a soaker hose. Try to avoid putting the water directly on leaves or edible fruits. And then, you know, when you do harvest your vegetables, make sure you wash that produce thoroughly before eating, and use and empty that rain barrel frequently. Don't let that water sit there for a long period of time. All right, so in addition to watering your gardens or landscaping, you know, you can wash your dog. Use it for any kind of washing. We've done systems for lots of cars or vehicle washing, floor washing, things like that. I've had people say they've used it for toilet tanks when the electric went out and their pump wasn't working on their well. They used the water out of the rain barrel to fill their toilet tanks so they could flush their toilets. And bird baths, another feature, or ponds in your landscape. You can put the water in those areas as well. Again, use that water frequently. Your barrel will be opaque, so you won't get a lot of light penetration. Again, if you are trying to find other barrels or looking at other barrels, try to find ones that are not translucent, that don't let light penetrate the barrel, because if you get light in there with water, you'll get a lot of algae growth and plant growth in your barrel, which will clog it up, and it's also unattractive. So again, use that water, discourage algae growth in it. Again, make sure if you have a barrel, other than the ones you're purchasing from us, make sure that they're opaque so that light does not penetrate. Again, empty that barrel out. Even if you haven't used it to water your garden, you don't need it right now, empty it out if you know it's going to rain the next day. You'll get fresh water in it, and you'll also help to alleviate the pressure on our storm sewer system here in the city of Brookings. Again, do not use this rain barrel water for cooking or drinking. This is not potable water for consumption. And if for some reason you're putting any kind of a chemical on your rooftop, I know some people have shaded roofs where they have a lot of moss growing. If you're putting kind of chemicals on your roof for some reason, Don't want to connect your rain barrel up to those downspouts and gutters and then use that on your lawn or landscaping. That's not going to be healthy for it. Again, mosquitoes. I want to come back to this. Again, this is the top of the rain barrel you're going to get. It's going to look like that. It's going to have a screen in the center of it. You want to keep that screen clean and working, and at all times keep it on there so that you do not get mosquitoes in your rain barrel. Again, keep it hooked up during the growing season, April through October, late September. Remove the debris from the screen. Keep an eye on it after rainstorms. Believe me, this barrel will fill up fast. We get a quick thunderstorm here in Brookings, that rain barrel will fill up even if that thunderstorm lasts only 10 or 15 minutes. You will be surprised how quickly that rain barrel will fill up. And make sure you have your overflow directed away from your house and across the lawn or into your landscaping so that the extra water doesn't cause any damages up against your foundation. Again, your rain barrel can't sit outside all winter long. It's not, it's not going to survive. If there's water in it, it will freeze, it will crack, it will damage it. So you want to disconnect it in the winter and make sure that your downspouts can then direct your flow away from the foundation during those winter months when you are not able to use that water. And if you want to clean your barrel out, you can. I would suggest doing it at the end of the season. Put a little bit of bleach in a water solution, use a brush, clean the inside of it out. You want to make sure it's thoroughly dry and there's no bleach residue in that barrel before you fill it back up and water your landscaping, because bleach is not going to, any bleach residue is not going to be helpful or healthy on your landscaping and your plants. All right, so hopefully all of you are excited about getting your rain barrel and getting it home in the next week or two. I'm excited to hopefully see some pictures of it as well, but you need to do a little bit of planning. Do a little bit of thinking up front, okay? You need to make sure that you have a safe, level, secure place for your rain barrel to sit. So think about where it's going to go. I would recommend removing sod and from beneath that rain barrel and putting down some sand, gravel, or crushed stone as a base, several inches of that as a base below there to provide solid footing for your barrel. Make sure that it's level. All right, you want to make sure that you prepare the site appropriately. And you might also want to raise it up. You'll have a spigot on your barrel, but it'll be a little bit low to the ground. And so by raising it up, you'll be able to get a water bucket underneath of there, a watering can under there. Also, by raising that barrel up a little bit, you'll get a little more pressure. Keep in mind, this is not going to be pressurized. You're not going to be able to put a hose on here and then put a spray nozzle on the end and expect water to come spraying out. This is not water that's coming out of your home from your potable water supply or regular hose spigot. It's going to be low flow. It will flow out the garden hose, but it will not pressurize and come out of a spray nozzle. All right. So, but again, you want to have a safe, level, secure base for your rain barrel, because guess what? Water is heavy. How heavy? Water weighs over 8 pounds a gallon. So your rain barrel, when it is full, that 50 gallons of water will weigh 400 pounds. You do not want that rain barrel falling over, hurting someone, falling over on a pet. You want that secure and stable. So make sure that you plan accordingly and have a safe, secure base for your rain barrel before it fills up with 400 pounds of water. So get your base in place, get your foundation secure, put your rain barrel in, mock it up. Make sure you know how it and where it's going to be, what it's going to look like, at the height it's going to be before you start cutting your downspouts. You will need to do a little bit of work. You'll need to cut your downspouts. The simplest way is to get your barrel there, know where the height of that barrel is, and then cut a section of your downspout out, and then reconnect the elbow at the end up above so that the water comes out above your rain barrel and then discharges and flows down into the screen, into the barrel. You don't want to cut your downspout too short or too long and have to do it multiple times. So make sure you secure that and plan for that accordingly as you begin the process of your installation of your rain barrel. A recommendation, to make winterizing a little bit easier, there are some first flush diverters that are available. We do not have them available as part of this grant, but they are available from several online resellers. You can find them if you look up rain barrel first flush diverter or diverter options. These are 3 different ones that are available. The one on the left works nicely. You can get different sizes. Make sure you get the correct size. If you have a 2 inch by 3 inch downspout or a 3 inch by 4 inch downspout, make sure you purchase the correct size for your system. And this system here basically has a little lever in here so that you flip the lever one way and the water comes down into this pipe here, which then would discharge into your rain barrel. Or if you flip it the other way in the wintertime, the water will come down the roof, down through the downspout, and then can go onto the rest of your downspout down to the ground and away from your foundation. So it makes it very simple and easy to winterize your system. Both of these other 2 systems are kind of inline systems that you cut a section of your downspout out and you put this diverter in, and then you reconnect below. And then by opening up the plug and having a hose that connects out here, there's a little bit of a baffle in here that'll capture some of the water flowing down and direct it into your rain barrel. And in the wintertime, you simply disconnect the hose, put a cap on here, then all the water will back up and go on down into the downspout and away from your foundation. Again, these make winterizing a lot easier, and also make shutting off if your rain barrel's full or you're going to be gone for a long period of time. You don't need the water, but you still want to leave your rain barrel up in the summertime. You can flip the switch or disconnect it. Again, this is that last system, that Fisker's rainwater collection system. It's kind of an inline system. You'll cut out a section of your downspout, put this in, hook the hose up in the summertime to your rain barrel. It'll fill up. In the wintertime, you'll disconnect the hose, put a cap on here, and the water will just back up and go on down the downspout as it would normally. All right. Again, you're spending a little bit more up front, and it's taking a little time to put these in. Will make your system a little easier to maintain over many years in terms of winterizing it each and every fall, and then reconnecting it again in the spring. All right. So again, you need to winterize your barrel. You leave the barrel in, put it in place in the spring. Your downspout flowing into the barrel and your overflow coming out and away from the foundation. And then in the fall and winter, you'll reconnect your downspouts and or extenders to get the water away from there. Again, you'll make sure all the water's out of your barrel. Turn it upside down. I typically store mine upside down in a shed or in my garage. Clean it out really good and make sure that it's all ready to go to install for the next season. All right. So this picture on the left is actually a picture of the rain barrels we have. Christina took a picture of this yesterday and posted it on Facebook. And so these are the barrels that we have for you at McCrory Gardens. You will get the whole barrel. It will not come assembled. It shouldn't be too difficult to assemble. Have a little bit of instructions. You'll have a spigot like this that you'll have to screw into place. You'll have an overflow hose. And again, depending on where you install your barrel, the overflow hose can be hooked on either the left side or the right side of the barrel. It will come with a lid with a screen in it so that it is completely sealed and you do not have to worry about mosquitoes in there. Again, we purchased these in bulk from EnviroWorld. If you look online, these barrels retail for about $80 or $90 each. Most rain barrels, if you're looking for rain barrels, are anywhere from $75 to $100, $150, depending on what you like and kind of different styles. So we're really excited to be able to provide these barrels to residents here in Brookings for only $25 with the support of our grant funders. All right. So this is it, just wrapping things up. If you have any questions, please post them in the chat or the question and answer session. John and I can hang around and answer a few of these on with you if you're interested. Again, the purchase is up and available on Eventbrite. I posted the link in the chat, so hopefully you're able to use that. If you're having any issues, let me know, and I will we can repost that. We've opened up the sales right now. I believe Christina has it up and running, so it is open, and we will start selling those rain barrels today, and we will let you know when you will be able to come and pick them up at McCrory Gardens, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, and get them installed. Again, we only have 100 at this time, so we will sell those and hopefully meet the demand. And if you do get your barrel, please share some photos with us. Or videos of them filling up or installing them. Let us know, post those online, tag McCrory Gardens, SDSU Extension, or the Landscape Architecture Program. We really want to see those photos of these barrels in place. We want to know where they're at. We want to be able to share that your experiences with our grant funders, and hopefully be able to continue programs like this in the future. So with that, I am going to stop sharing, or actually I'll leave this up for now. I'll open the chat up. Is there anything else, any questions that we have?
So we did have one about availability for rain barrels for folks in Brookings County, not in the city of Brookings. So the initial offering is for just the city of Brookings, I'm sorry. But if there are remaining barrels after that time, then it will be opened up for the Brookings County residents as well.
Okay. All right, any other questions? I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Hope you found it interesting. Hope you're all going to spend some time outside today. It's beautiful weather here in Brookings on this wonderful Earth Day. Oh, would large Rubbermaid barrels be safe for use as a rain barrel? Yes, I've actually seen that. You probably can go online and find some instructions on how to convert a Rubbermaid barrel trash can into a rain barrel. I've seen several instances where people have done that. I believe Michelle posted that. So yeah, there's really a lot of different innovative strategies out there for converting barrels to or trash cans and other plastic systems into rain barrels. But again, just try to avoid things that have had harsh chemicals in them.
And Carla, we could follow up offline if you want to send me an email. I'm putting my email in the chat.
All right. Any other questions? I didn't see anything else. Q&A. No. People are using the chat. That's great. Okay, I will post the. Yeah, hopefully everybody's found the link to purchasing the barrels. Let me know. I'll post it again. It's there.
So this is the first time, obviously, that we've done a remote workshop like this. I'm curious if folks would be interested in something similar related to other green stormwater infrastructure practices like rain gardens or permeable pavers or anything like that.
Good. All right. And another thank you out there again to Christina at McCrory Gardens and also Lindsay at SDSU Extension for helping with the tech stuff today, making this all work and recording it, and we will make this available. So if you have friends who missed it or are interested in it, please let them know that we will have this a recording of this webinar available, and they can participate and then order a barrel from there. So, okay, great.
Some additional activities with this project. So as I mentioned in the beginning, this is a partnership also with the Boys and Girls Club in Brookings. And in the original grant plan, we had planned to install a larger rainwater harvesting system at the Boys and Girls Club for their garden shelter, and do that as a public workshop to demonstrate how to install a rainwater harvesting system. Those plans have, of course, been put on hold, but we do hope that we can do that at some point, either late summer or early fall, of course, depending on how things go. And along with that, we're developing some curriculum for the Boys and Girls Club that they can give for their members. And we'll also be doing a rain garden if, again, we can get it in the constraints of the grant and what we're able to do, but doing a rain garden at the Brookings Boys and Girls Club site as well. One question was about the link being posted after the meeting. So SDSU Extension will do a little bit of post-processing, and then the video will be put on their YouTube channel, and McCrory Gardens can link to that on their Facebook page. So we'll make that, yes, it was recorded and will be available.
Someone's asking about the PowerPoint slides, John. I can convert our PowerPoint to a PDF and send it to Lindsay to post. Is that okay on the SDSU Extension website?
Sure, or it might be easiest if people are interested to just email us directly, and we can send you the PDF. But yeah, we're happy to share those.
Yeah, I'll put that if you want a copy of the slides. I'll put it in the chat here. I will generate a PDF and I will downsize it so it's not so large it'll be emailable.
Also, I'm on Twitter. If anybody's on Twitter, I'm about 500 followers away from 1,000. So right there. Nice. Landscape Architecture Department is on social media as well. If anyone has any more questions, feel free, or suggestions for future endeavors, feel free to put that in the chat. But it's all the content we had. Instructions. Rain garden workshop seems like a popular option. Yeah.
Those are fun. We could do that.
Well, this is last call for comments or questions.
Sounds good. Like both our emails are in there, so if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out.
There's a question regarding any federal project to protect rainwater for every household. So there's nothing at the federal level for, not really, I guess would be the answer. So there are programs, but they're generally at the watershed scale and usually through competitive grant processes that those are awarded, and typically based on impaired water bodies. So that's the 319 program. It's 319 for, for water quality. Personal use or personal support to implement practices. Nothing at the federal level that I know of, Jeremiah.
Yeah, I mean, and water use and water capture is different, and rules and regulations are different in different regions of the country. Water rights out west are very different than water law on the eastern part of the country. So there's no one federal blanket program for guiding this effort. You know, some states do encourage use of reuse, I guess, gray water, wastewater, reused gray water. You know, in Florida and in some areas of California, it's against the law to use potable water for irrigation. If you have an irrigation system in your yard or at your property, you have to connect to a gray water connection. And so in many communities, they actually have a separate set of water pipes that come from the wastewater treatment plant. Those pipes typically are a different color than your other pipes, and you have to hook your irrigation system up to those. So there are some different areas of the country where the cost of potable water is prohibitive enough that they do not allow it for watering, landscaping, or irrigation purposes and things like that. And gray water use is encouraged.
So I see someone raise their hand in the chat. Does that mean you have a question, or are you saying goodbye? Ah, gotcha. That was a question through Q&A.
All right. Q&A, got it. Okay.
Very good.
All right.
Well, thank you. And again, please feel free to contact Jeremiah or myself through our emails. We're very passionate about this topic, so
yeah, we spend a little too much time with water sometimes.
That's true, but I don't know, I have fun. So
yes, and thank you again, Lindsay, and thank you, Christina, for all the work you did to make this happen and turn around in a pretty quick, short time frame. So it's gone very well, having to do a webinar from 2 different locations and meet all of our social distancing requirements.
Yep. And thank you all for attending.
Yep.
And who knows, hopefully we can do something in the future. In the interim, we are for sure moving forward with the rain barrel distribution or the registration for that. So please, if you're interested, follow the link and get your rain barrel. So.
All right. All right. I'll sign off, John. Take care.
All right. Thanks,
See you,
everyone.
everyone.